in one phone call, I had literally probably a year's worth of salary wiped out on when the COVID and the lockdown stuff started to happen, because a lot of the work I did at that time wasn't here, it was international.
How did you get into video?
A client asked, I think, and then you spend 1 million kroner or something and you realize you're so far in that you've got to do it. And then a lot of studying, a lot of like looking at the greats.
What do you mean you spent 1 million kroner?
Just on equipment, you start buying stuff, and before you know it, you got all this video gear, and you invest maybe not 1 million, but not far off actually. I want to tell stories. I want to tell stories, and I suppose the ultimate aim would be to make something that made a difference.
Hey!
Good morning.
Today we're chatting with Darren. What we know about him so far is that he is a filmmaker and photographer who grew up in London. He's been living in Oren for more than 11 years, and we can't wait to get to know him better together with you guys.
Have you always wanted to be a photographer?
Have I always wanted to be a photographer? No. No. There's a deeper answer to that, though. If we want to arrive right, I can go into it if you like.
Yeah.
When I grew up, my father had film cameras, and I have this memory of being a kid of we lived in like a split level apartment. So upstairs was the living room, then you had the middle floor, which was the toilet and the bathroom, and then you had the bedrooms on the bottom floor. And quite often the bathroom would be blacked out and you'd have this strange smell, and then there'd be these tanks like lined up. And it was my dad who would, amateur dabbling with photography, film photography back then, of course, because this would have been the 80s.
So you had like a dark room.
Yeah, he fixed basically you could just see under the bathroom door and see this glow of red light. And then the smell of the chemicals, and that was my dad developing. Yeah, so that kind of stuck with me.
Cool. How long? That's like a while ago then.
That would have been like 80s. So when I was a kid, like 85.
And was it a common thing to do then, to have like your own darkroom, or was it kind of special?
Maybe more so than now. I mean, film, there was no digital, so that's what people did. And I think many people developed their own black and white, especially.
And for him, it was a hobby?
Yeah. I look back at I found many years ago some shoeboxes with all the photos, and I think for the main part they were aeroplane photos. Is what he was into. So I think so, which is kind of cool. But I think most of them, if I remember, there was family stuff too. But I think he enjoyed taking photos of aeroplanes. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And you never knew why then? I
don't think there was any deep. I think he liked airplanes, maybe, and there was no deeper reason, I think, and maybe that was just his subject that he hooked onto with the camera. So I'm not really sure why.
So you got your love from that a little bit.
I wouldn't say love, but that kind of stayed with me. And then many years later, when my son was born, I started. Obviously, I thought I want to take photos of him growing up. So I with a phone first, and then I bought my first DSLR, I suppose, at that point.
Which one? Do you remember?
Yeah, Nikon D600, I think it was. And it was it was a good camera, but it suffered from grease spots on the sensor. And I could go into a big thing here, but Nikon really messed it up because they refused to fix it. And then when I gave up, got rid of the camera, then they put out a mass recall. But this is after like a year and a half of trying to get it fixed. So Nikon lost me forever at that point.
Aww, sad.
Sorry, Nikon.
So where are you now then?
I'm Fuji and whatever goes, but mainly Fuji. Yeah.
Okay, but from there on, photography was a thing in your life.
Then I started taking photos of the family and kids, and at that time I was working in Uppsala and I was living in Stockholm, and I had a friend who was a friend actually who I'd not spoken to for a few years until last week actually. But he was working for an agency that deals with images for the newspapers and stuff. And I kind of had, I was really started to have this interest in like Kappa and war photography and stuff. I thought that was a really interesting angle on photography. And I suppose and that was leaning into street photography a little bit. Because I was commuting, I was just experimenting and playing, taking photos around Stockholm and a bit
Were you
street.
in your 20s, in your 30s?
No, this is 30s. Yeah. So this is like when my son was born, and he's 14 now. So about 14 years ago.
And did you study photography then?
No.
No.
After that, I've done many hours on YouTube and everything. So, but I've never studied it per se, but a lot of self-study, a lot.
And how did you arrive into Sweden then? What was the connection?
Sweden connection is my girlfriend. I lived in Sweden before many years ago. And then I was back in London and I met Sophia. And she was living in London, and we decided I think she had to come back to finish her studies. And we'd been going out for a couple of years, so I followed her back. And I had been in Sweden many years ago before. So we came back and we lived in Stockholm, and went from there, really. And then, Stockholm for a good few years before we moved up here. We moved up here after the kids were born. Yeah.
Did you ever find it hard to integrate in Sweden?
Not really. No. I think that, I think in the beginning, I think that, pretty similar on face value, but the longer you live here and the more you dig down and get into the little nuances, the more it's different. It's very different. But I think in the beginning, at face value, it's a European country, pretty similar. It's when you actually start to be here for a long time that you pick up on.
What are for you the things that stand out? A few. Just a few.
I think, it's more, I think the people are a bit more reserved. In the UK, everyone's a bit more, you talk to strangers a bit more, I think, and you can have a chat to someone in the local shop pretty easy, and your neighbours especially. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen here, but it's just different. I think there is more of a sense of, like the village feeling. Or I think if you look back over history in the UK, you had the village pub, and everyone went to the pub after they finished work because it was where they could meet up and be social. Whereas I think in Sweden, everyone had their land and they farmed the land and they lived on their plot of land. So I think if you look back over history, in the UK culture, we always has this focal point that we came back to. And in Sweden, you've got these really long, dark winter nights. And then everyone has been working on their land, and then they have their houses more around. So they maybe see the light of the neighbor over there, but it's -20 and the wind is blowing. I'm not going to bother speaking to them today. I think whereas in the UK, it was more, we had more of this village coming together thing. And I think maybe that still is a little bit underneath in the subconscious, maybe a little bit, how we behave.
Was it the same in Stockholm?
Stockholm's different altogether, I think.
Yeah.
I think Stockholm is a beautiful city, but I think it's also a little impersonal at times in the winter months, and it can be a bit, okay, let's not mess around. I don't think people are so nice to each other, generally speaking.
In Stockholm?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit...
But Sweden has a bit that winter, summer culture.
Vibe.
I think in summer, it's all about coming together, and like midsummer and activities outdoors, outside.
Yeah.
And in winter, it's like cuddle up inside and enjoy the heat around the fire.
But I think with Stockholm, I remember in the summer, say, for example, having these long nights where you'd be up on Hornstull, go for beers, watch music, meet with strangers, go to a party. Fantastic times. Absolutely, and really open. And I'm not saying everyone is, but then I've got so many memories of commuting in Stockholm was brutal. It was horrible. Everyone was there was nothing, it was just not nice.
But is it not the same in every city? Would London not be the same?
Yeah, I'm not saying commuting in somewhere it's meant to be nice, but it just felt really not nice.
Because you grew up in a city?
I grew up really in the city, in the middle. And I think maybe I suffered from Stockholm not being big enough. I think in a way, maybe.
Because London is your city?
Yeah. I grew up right in the middle.
That's a big city.
Yeah. And I think maybe I'm looking at it through my eyes that Stockholm is a little small, and it does have these great places, and some have had some great times in Stockholm, don't get me wrong. But I think it's also, people can be a little bit cold there, I think is what I'm getting at. And people can be it can be a bit tricky.
I was growing up in London then as a kid. I can only imagine lots of cars and traffic and lots of...
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I grew up right in the middle in a place called Victoria, Pimlico, block of flats above a coach station, by a train station, next to a police station. So it was concrete. It was really, but it was fun growing up there. I mean, we had a lot of fun, and but it was different. I mean, now when I'm out with my kids and my son or daughter would say something to me about, "Oh, did you have a ski jump or some bike park or something?" We had like a milk crate with a piece of plywood to build a jump, and then it wasn't the same. We played football more. It wasn't really anything like here now. It was more football. And
but did you go out on the streets to play? No, you were
not
always
really
in little parks.
No, you'd be in the parks or in the playground of the block of flats when you were kids, and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I thought, looking back, it was kind of fun. If you look back at it now from adult eyes or eyes of growing up here, you would think, oh my God, probably. But I mean, at
completely
the time,
different. Just urban jungle.
Yeah.
And when you were 18, you were like, I need to get out of the city, or not at all, and you stayed there?
No, not really. My parents split when I was around that age, and well, just before they split, they moved out of London, and I kind of went, but I ended up just staying in London pretty much. And then I wanted, at that point, it was the 90s. It was grunge. It was like just discovered going out, that kind of stuff. And it was, looking back now, it was a good decade. So it was a lot of concerts, a lot of music, a lot of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to stay in London at that point, at that age.
What was the first time you left then?
When I left London?
Yeah.
I think I was in my 20s, early 20s. It must have been. My ex-girlfriend was Swedish too, and we lived in London together for 6-7 years. And then when we split up, we'd been coming to Sweden a bit, and at the same time I got made redundant from my job. So then we booked a trip back to a small town in Sweden together, but because we'd split, she said, you can take it, it's no problem, we get on. So I came over because I made friends. And then they said, why don't you stay? So I came back to London quickly to get some stuff. And then I went back and lived in a small Swedish town for about a year, and had a lot of fun. It was good. Played football, did a little bit of work with some friends and this and that. And then after a year, I've got to go back and get on with life. But it was fun for a year, really fun. So that was my first sort of insight into living in Sweden, you could say.
What was your first paid job as a photographer?
It was a wedding. So I went really in at the deep end. I don't really remember. It was in Stockholm, and it was a couple from Poland. And I think, okay, this is really going back. I think someone put on a message board, the local, like an English-speaking, that web message board became really poisonous. So I don't read it anymore. Maybe it's changed now, but it was full of people moaning. But someone put a message up about, is there anyone here who could photograph a wedding? And I just said, yeah, I can do that. So I contacted them. It was a couple of thousand kroner. It was nothing. But I did the wedding. They were happy. It was a really good experience. And that was the first paid gig. Yeah. So I went in at the deep end.
Were you happy with the result?
Actually, yeah, I think it was okay for the first time. I mean, looking at it now, when you look back at your earlier work, you can cringe a bit, of course. But I think at the time, the clients were really happy, and I still have contact with them a little bit. And I think they're okay. It wouldn't be the work I would do now, but it passed the bar, and I think it was
because
okay.
Shooting a wedding is not an easy gig.
No, but it wasn't a full. I mean, it was they were staying in a hotel as a small family group with some guests because they had relatives from Stockholm. So we went up to Haga Park, I think, and shot stuff outside. So it's pretty simple. There was no lighting involved at that point. The ceremony was also under like a pagoda So it wasn't in a church or anything. So it was a wedding in some aspects. It was a wedding, but in terms of like bigger weddings with multiple things to think about, it wasn't. It was really just documentary stuff. It was pretty straightforward.
And did you catch the bug? Was that your new passion from then on?
Yeah, I suppose it was. Yeah, I mean, it was a process. It was taking pictures of the kids, doing the street photography on the journey to and from work, reading, studying YouTube, started doing this little bits and pieces. But I didn't do much work in Stockholm. I mean, that was pretty much the only job I did in Stockholm. And then I moved up here. I still had my day job, 100%.
And what about the idea you had for going for war photography? Did that still happen at some point?
No, that was more for inspiration.
Okay.
So I would like to think that if I had known I wanted to be a photographer in my 20s, that's probably what I would have wanted to pursue. I mean, I'm reading stuff like the Bang Bang Club and speaking to one particular friend of mine who's a photographer that does do a lot of stuff in war zones and places that have got difficulties. And also the friend I mentioned earlier who worked for a press agency that dealt with photos to sell to the newspapers. So he got to see the stuff that doesn't get published and stuff. But that side of photography, I think, is important because I think that's where it can really make a difference. You can take a photo that really, really makes a difference. And I think if we're being really honest, that's what I'd love to do, not take photos of weddings. Even though weddings are good because they mean something to the people that you're taking. I've actually done jobs where I've been hired for an event. I've delivered the photos and I can see they never even download them. Yet the whole thing was a 3-day big event, but it's budgeted, so it's in, but maybe no one at that company has responsibility. So on the shoot, everything is stressful. Everyone is like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you do everything, it's no problem. You deliver, no one ever downloaded the file.
Wow.
They paid the bill. And that's happened a few times. So I think it's just in the budget for the event. And that can be a bit, that kind of stuff can be a little bit...
not very motivating.
No. Whereas with a wedding, it means something. It
and
really
they're
does.
so grateful after because you captured emotions that meant something to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So capturing in that element where it means something is really quite special.
Yeah. So then you moved to Aura, and that's when you decided to go more that direction?
Yeah, I moved to Aura. I negotiated with the company I worked for that I would travel down once a month back to Uppsala.
What kind of work was that?
I was in travel, like promoting and selling Sweden and Norway as a destination to the international market. So then I moved up here, continued that job, but just, I suppose, really started Instagramming a lot. And if I look back at some of the photos I took in that first couple of years, they were terrible, but I just really went full in. And then I got offered a couple of jobs. Do you do photos? So I just started to get jobs up here. And then it started to develop. Then I met a couple of other people, creatives, and it really just went from there. So I think for a period I was working 200%. I'd been with the company I worked for 10 years, so I had a lot of holiday. So I was taking holidays to do jobs. So I was working 2 jobs really for a period of time. And then the owner of the company I worked for, because Brexit was coming and it was effectively a UK company with an office, it was getting more complicated, decided to call it a day. So then I was, okay, what do I do now? And that was a bit of a moment, because it's like, do I go look for another job or do I just go with this photography? And it's now, 11 years later, I suppose.
Has it been hard?
It's been hard. I wouldn't say it's easy. I think COVID period, I'm still recovering from that in terms of the business. In one phone call, I had literally probably a year's worth of salary wiped out on when the COVID and the lockdown stuff started to happen, because a lot of the work I did at that time wasn't here, it was international. I was traveling or So I think that year, when I look back, around 75% of what I did was abroad, the work, my clients at that time. So then I couldn't travel. Plus the work I did have in Sweden was all cancelled. So that hit a little hard. And then,
Was there any help from the government at that point?
Not really for me, because I was in the process of switching to an RB from a sole trader. But that process hadn't been done, and they didn't really help sole traders. So I have colleagues pretty much turn over the same money, work very closely with, and they about 3 months prior had switched, and then a few months later we're in a van driving, and I'm listening to his conversation, and he says how much money he got. I was like, oh man,
Painful.
I should have gone for the RB earlier, because they got. He was quite happy with.
Because we did get help, even though we were self-employed. Different country, but
different country. Yeah, in Belgium we did get help as a sole trader.
And we're thinking about the big aspect, because when people think about being self-employed, there is always so many good sides about it. So I really like to promote it, because it gives you, hey, you can be independent, creative, do what you like to do. But it does come with that extra layer of not working for somebody, and then if shit hits the fan, you can be pretty much screwed.
Exactly, and I think if I look back, the lead up to that period was good. We had some big jobs, and we were working, a couple of people up here locally working together on bigger stuff, and I had a good client, a bank, traveling all over the world, like doing stuff for them. So it was financially doing really well and everything, but then that period came, and it was it's still, and the economy has been slow, I think, the last year or so, a couple of years. So it's probably been the toughest period in the whole period of the business. But looking forward at the moment, all you can do.
Did it change the way you look at your work in some way? Like, do you do something different now to protect yourself from, let's say, another potential pandemic? Or
I don't know if I can as a creative. I think if that happens, it happens. I think, the RB, looking at switching that to a limited company.
What's an AB called in English?
A limited company.
Limited company.
Yeah. So maybe that, but that's we just don't know. So I think as creatives, I think we are in the creative industry. I think that we're going to be susceptible to the market.
But are you looking at different types of income streams in a way?
Yeah.
Because of this, maybe?
Yeah, I think part of the problem of I never really had to pitch, and I never really had to look for work. I was lucky in that way. It kind of just kept coming. And then when I thought, okay, I do want to go and pitch something now, and then another job would come in. But post-COVID, you could say, like, you can sit there, there's no work, and then all of a sudden a couple of jobs come along and you really get into them. And then part of that process when you're working alone is that you're focused so much on that job, on pre-production, shooting the job, post-production, that when you're starting to come to the ends of that job or those jobs, you start to think again, oh my, I don't have any work again. So it's a bit of a cycle of because
you don't have time during the job to get another pitch going.
Exactly. So now my plan, I'm in the process of setting up a small agency, because I think that I had been, through contacts, asked if I wanted to shoot some campaigns up here, bigger campaigns for some big brands. And in the end, they always kind of, oh no, they're going to bring an agency from Stockholm. And I think there is an issue as a creative on your own, that when you want to scale up and attract bigger brands, and I have worked for them sometimes, especially through the sports and through the athletes who get you on board. But in general, I think you need to be able to present more as an agency, to give them that trust.
Bring more to the table.
Yeah.
And what does an agency entail then?
Well, I think an agency could entail, is still just, in one way, it's just how you're presenting. But I'm figuring we know a lot of good creatives in different parts of the creative process, graphics, CGI, SEO. So offering a solution for a company that can kind of cover all that. Because quite often I think I got friends down in Stockholm that work in the create art directors and stuff, and they will work. They will have a big strategy meeting, strategize, and how we're going to do this and this, and then the UX will go out to do the web design and the shop front and this stuff, and the videos kind of like then it's just kind of falls off a little bit on that process, and then that's subcontracted out to another person, and it feels it's a bit fragmented. So maybe I'm just sort of looking at maybe we can offer that as a
package deal.
A package deal, yeah. And I've been working on that now, and but you still need to, as a collective of the people that I'm going to work with and bring in, we've got good CVs and good portfolios with good clients and show good work. But sometimes that's still not enough. You need to the doors have to open. You have to, make that work. So it's challenging, but I think it has to be the way, because more people are coming into this part of the industry, which is great, and I'm not knocking them, but that pulls down the price, and I've seen work where like an interview set up where we're sat like this and the window's blown out and it's all done wrong, and I know that was a job where you could bid for, and I wasn't in the bidding process, so I didn't bid for that one, but I knew it was a job that was out for tender, and obviously they've gone for the cheapest one, and it's
tempting.
Yeah, and that person, I'm not knocking them. They're learning their craft, but still, that's lowered the price for everyone. It's made, sometimes depending on the client, they won't see those things. Sometimes that doesn't matter. It is what it is. But I think we need to push for that, for the higher end and really high production. And I think there's enough people up here for us to do that without letting other companies always come in and do this local work. I think we could do it up here ourselves.
I'm kind of surprised that it doesn't really exist already here. And we've been talking about it a bit ourselves to create something more as a group, as a team, as a collective. Hub. Because it brings so much more energy to the table if you're with a lot of people working on one thing together.
Exactly. I think people are, like TV order, Tulle and stuff, that timing sometimes, like the COVID comes along and, because we can definitely do stuff up here. There's people up here, and so it's no issue. It's just bringing it together. And I think that's my that's what I think I have to do as a business, because I think just being a sole person isn't going to get tougher.
Do you have a name yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, I'm curious. I really like the idea.
How far are you in the process? Are you almost done?
I've been speaking to some people. Yeah. And to be honest, this early stage, it's more getting the website, the front part looking good. And that person I need is in Stockholm and Gothenburg to talk to the clients on, so because I think you can still have all this stuff, but you have to go out, you have to pitch, you have to make introductions. And I think, why would the big company spend? Because I think there is also part of this going on in that companies down with the big agencies, they have a big infrastructure and they can do great stuff. But it's super expensive still, because I've seen some quotes for stuff. And it was insane. You wouldn't believe how much they're charging for a social media campaign.
What are you talking about? You don't have to say like specific, but in the range of
millions
of kroners.
Yeah.
For what exactly then?
Some short SOME stuff, 90-second, 30-second deliverables for social media for a company. And I saw, and I was asked, would I like to go in on this? And I was given some information, and I said, yeah. And the weird thing is, after I didn't get involved, in the end that didn't come off, and I don't think they went for that big job anyway, the company. But it just goes to show, I think that particular company makes great stuff. They're amazing, but that's not the level for everyone. We can still make work that's at that level on such a smaller scale for smaller companies that aren't going to cost millions. But it's about making. Sometimes if you go to someone and something's too cheap, you could think, what's wrong with it? And I think maybe there's a little bit of that going on. And it's not. It's just that back in the days, you needed to have a crew of X because the equipment was huge. And I think there's a little bit in the industry where we just let that roll, because even though, you can do some great work with a small crew, no problem. That is of a similar standard to these productions.
But you talked about creating then a sort of unity between graphics and photography and everything.
Yeah.
That's quite challenging, I think, as well, because we all have our own style.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to find them people
but then
from top to bottom.
That's driven by the brief, no? Because the job comes in and this is the brief, this is what we need to do. So that's like, we have to listen to what the client wants. So I think that's driven by the client. And of course, I mean, if I'm working at home in my office editing a personal project, I can do whatever I want to do. And then when I've worked with other people, you can have, I worked for a long time with Martin Olsson, and he's a fantastic guy. But you have to learn to, you have to share and deliberate. And I think that getting feedback is also an important part of the process, but you have to be very careful who you're asking for feedback, because this is opinion. It's not, there's no right or wrong sometimes. Should that have been cut to black, or should that have been a fade? In my mind, I know why I wanted it to be a cut, but the opinion, and then you can get so bogged down on these things that are actually individual things. There is like the structure of the story. If there's something glaringly obvious that's bad that you've missed, of course, you need to pick that up. And then, so you have to, when you're doing feedback, you have to, and I'm conscious of this myself, you can give feedback and think, okay, I think that you can do this or this better, but it has to be because I think production-wise or technically it's wrong, or it could be better. But you don't want to give feedback on what their actions were.
And you do videography as well?
Do video and photo, yeah. I mean, I'm doing more video now. So I do video, do photo, sometimes a bit of both on a particular job.
And you're a one-person job, or you work together with other
creatives? Right now, Martin has gone down to Stockholm. So we kind of doing our own thing and going our own direction a little bit. But yeah, and I've been working a bit more hired as a camera or on bigger stuff, just as a hired cam op for TV or films and stuff. So I've been doing a little bit of that. But I still want to make my own films and do my own.
How did you get into video?
Client asked, I think, and then you spend 1 million kroner or something and you realize you're so far in that you've got to do it. And then a lot of studying, a lot of like looking at the greats.
What do you mean you spent 1 million kroner?
Just on equipment, you start buying stuff, and before you know it, you got all this video gear, and you've invested, maybe not 1 million, but not far off actually. But you spend a lot of money on cameras and gear and sliders and lights and everything. And then, because back in the early stages, yeah, you buy stuff you definitely don't need. But, a tripod can cost 15,000, 20,000 kroner alone. A camera setup can be 100, 150 straight off. So it's expensive to do video. And then you need like, how many cameras are you recording today? 3?
4?
4, yeah. So, maybe they're not all 100,000, but they're at least minimum 30 probably, one, couple of them. The lights, so before you know it, you're above 500,000. And I enjoyed it. And now I kind of want to craft it a bit more and get more specific.
How did you learn to edit videos? Because I think for a lot of people, that's the scary moment. Like, okay, shooting video is one thing. I don't say everybody's a professional straight away, but shooting is the easy part in some way. And then you need to edit. Like, how did you teach that to yourself?
It kind of was intuitive, I think. I actually don't remember when you say it like that, the first time I sat down in front of a computer editing. I don't remember.
Do you remember your first video project that you did?
No, actually not.
No.
It was a client who asked, can you shoot a bit of video? And I was a photographer. And I did it. But then I would say the video then became more of I love film, so it became a bit more, I'm taking still photos, let's try moving images. It's just the only difference is it's 25 pictures a second or whatever it is.
You need a lot more storage.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So I just kind of went in from it in that. And then I met a guy who lived in Aura at the time who was a really good guy and really into film, Simon Silverdal. And we worked together and just were into film together a lot. and techniques, learning the craft, making it as good as it can be. And I'm still learning now all the time. But I think that, you look at I just like cinema. I love cinema. I think it's fantastic.
How would you describe your style?
I think I want to say it's pretty like editing wise. I'm not into all this fast cuts per se, which is a bit the trend at the moment. Even though I've done it for clients, of course, but I want to tell stories. I want to tell stories, and I suppose the ultimate aim would be to make something that made a difference. But there's a difference here now in that. Am I making videos for me or paid jobs? Most of the time, it's jobs, it's work. But I would love to be in a position, again, which is my aim, where I can work enough to fund my own project and then go and make a film about something I really want to make. And
Have you done that much?
Not really, not so much. It's just not at the time. Family, COVID, need money. So,
So you haven't really made a documentary or film that you wanted to produce at some point?
Not my own project as such. I've worked on jobs that have been really fun, and I would have done, that kind of work, like Arctic 12 with Rene and Jackie.
What is that?
4 athletes that summited the 12 peaks of Sweden under their own power. For Scott Sports was the head sponsor. Then with Evelina, done 2 films with North Face. So that kind of work it's not work in a way. It's really fun, and doing that kind of stuff. But I suppose more story-led stuff is what I would want to do personally.
So if time and money was no
object,
what would you make then now?
I would probably want to do something documenting people's lives in some way, shape or form. History also, I think, is important now as we get older. I got more into wanting to document history. I've shot some pilot stuff for that as a personal project, but I need funding for that. And I've had some talks with Östersunds Commune. But
history from around here?
Yeah, like Winston Churchill was up here back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, there's the whole Vålådalen was used as an Olympic training camp back in the days. So you had all these world famous athletes back in training in Vålådalen.
How long ago you mean then?
Yeah, don't quote me on this, but like the heavyweight boxer, I can't remember his name now, 20s, 30s, 40s, and like I think it was the Chinese Olympic team for something were up there training. So there's this history there. You've got all these rich aristocrats that used to come turn of the century. There was a company called the London and Yarpen Travel Company. And it was basically the rich nobility from the UK coming here to go hunting. And like there's still these old villas and remnants of it up north of Order, I think, especially. And I think the Johnny Walker family had a house there. There was a story of a couple of young guys that came here hunting, and then their parents, you got to stop doing it. So they set up a company just as a front so they could go hunting in Yarpen, and all this kind of stuff. So there's all those kind of stories. I think there's so much more. There's the Carolina. I think that's something really interesting. The Death March, where all the soldiers died up on the border, Handel, Storulvån, around that area.
It's like a war between
Sweden and Norway.
Yeah, for people who are listening that don't know this place or have never been here, it's around 10 minutes outside of Åre where that happened.
Yeah, a little further, but yeah. The Duved part is definitely.
Yeah.
So they perished in the winter. They tried to come back across the mountains.
Because we're very close to the Norwegian border here.
Yeah, and I think that kind of, there's myths and there's stories around these things that are really cool to document. And there's just some. I also think like the Second World War was an interesting period to document it. And I've done some research. There's a guy, he's still alive, and he lives a couple of hours north of here, pretty remote. But he can recall in the Second World War, if you were up in the mountains up there, you would sing a song. And that was important because if you're Norwegian, Swedish, or German. And, there was a lot of smuggling stuff across the border. So these kind of little things are interesting.
It's like in Belgium, there was a saying, schild or vriend.
Okay.
And it means shield or friend.
Okay, yeah.
But the way you pronounce schild, if you're from the French side, you would say skild. And then you would instantly know, oh, this is not, because after a while they realized we have to say schild or vriend, but they said schild or vriend.
So that would give them away.
Probably
yeah.
Just kill them. So it's interesting from the song story.
Yeah, definitely.
And how would you go about that? You would just find old material and interview people, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with Mikke and his wife up at Kalorsen, for example, and that's where I got introduced because he was buying a sheep. This old guy who lives another hour further north, and you need to talk to him. He's got these stories about the singing and so you just go around, and I think the more that you talk to people, the more that you find. And I think it's important that we document these things. And then there's also like lost skills. People are dying out that have these skills of how they make things and do things, and they're not being passed down and as much as they used to be. So I think there's this whole scope maybe to do a body of work on that kind of stuff. I've not
sounds like a long list of episodes you can make.
So that would be something if money was no object, and time, that would be fun to do. That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything that you are actually planning to do now in the near future, or a project that you have planned?
Yeah.
That you can elaborate on.
Yeah. Well, I think YouTube is important now, and I think that's a project that we've started a channel called Beyond the Embers with a guy called Richard Reese, who's a husky musher and a bushcraft expert. So we kind of soft launched that. We got some plans coming up for that, just about what's nature to people. What's your outdoors, what's your nature, and telling people stories, interacting with Richard. I have to fight him a little bit because he knows he kind of gravitates towards, like, the last idea he had, which we shot, was, I think I could make fire from that dead moose carcass. Okay, interesting. And I'm just thinking, that's interesting, but we need to be a bit broader than that. We need to so we can do that, but we also need to tell, more accessible stuff as well. I don't want it to be a bushcraft thing. I think a lot of the bushcraft world is a bit too male, camouflage, preppy, and that's not what this is. I want it to be inclusive. And
what is your overall goal of the project?
To bring in, being brutally honest, to primarily to make money, 100%, but to also share people's stories. I think it's a good thing. So if we can make money, and it's like you say, how do you, as a creative, how do you help yourself from being susceptible to things in the economy, and you need to have different revenue streams. Yeah, so I think it's amazing that we can have this platform where you can go and make a whole TV channel, like in the old sense of the word, like the BBC or SVT or NRK. You can do it yourself now. I mean, we are speaking to a particular YouTuber, going to do some stuff, and when we looked at the figures of that channel, it's more than many of his videos have more views than the record for the UK, which I think was Princess Diana's funeral. His
crazy,
videos kill that. I mean,
it all changed now. And these days, it's completely different.
No,
the old TV ideas kind of is dying out in a way as well.
I think that when that I was watching a program about this, and it's dropping massively, but it's still surviving. But the next generation coming up, it's over. They're not watching telly. Telly's only surviving because of older people still clinging on to that. But I think in 5 to 10 years, it's and that was part of it. We'd pitched some work and been in talks with SVT for our projects and stuff, and then when you look at the figures, what SVT do on SVT Play on a documentary, a big YouTube channel, what they would consider a success over a 6-month period, a YouTube channel could do that in a day. I mean,
but good. That's an important word because it's not easy. Like
no.
we made quite a lot of YouTube videos, and let's say work that we put a lot of time in, and had guys joining us to film and edit. Like we didn't even do it ourselves. When I look at those numbers, let's say they had 1,700 views max. And then I post one reel and it gets 70,000 views on Instagram.
Yeah.
So those numbers are like, it's not always easy. You just need to hit the right.
There used to be a competition here called you got the Aura Bike Festival, and they had the video challenge. And then we really you got a week to film, cut, make a video, put it out. So we had a crew. We worked really hard. It's a tough thing to do, and then you screen the video at the end of the week. So we're shooting this with expensive cameras, really putting all the work in, and then the video goes out, and that's cool. But the thing I found funny was that I think on social media that video got probably not even 10,000 views. A little reel that Remy Metelier, the biker we shot with, shot 1 million views. It's like, oh, okay. Like,
I put in all the work if you can just take your phone.
So there is a part of it that make. But I think if you focus a bit too much on that, then you could become this quite. It's a negative way of looking at it, maybe, but it's true. I mean, it's just. Does that mean we don't aspire to make really good stuff because the algorithm wants everything to be quick now?
And 1 million views does not necessarily mean something either. Like there is accounts that have a video with millions of views, just by accident it can happen. But it doesn't necessarily mean they get more followers or they find funding or it goes somewhere. So it's that balance between, okay, where does the money come from? Who's actually supporting you? Do you create quality content and have, less views than 1 million, let's say? Or do you have a one-hit wonder and what's gonna be more useful? Yeah.
It's challenging, and I mean, and YouTube for me, I mean, you can always. I think anyone in my position maybe thinks, "Well, why didn't I do this 10 years ago, 5 years ago?" Of course. But I don't want to. Apart from like doing this, I don't want to be this side of the camera. So YouTube for me, there's some exceptions. There's a few that are really, really good photographers or videographers talking with their YouTube channels, and they have some really interesting stuff, and it's really well produced. There's a few of them. And well produced could also mean just with one camera. I'm not saying it has to be a big production.
But you mean photographers explaining the craft,
the process, yeah. The process. But there's so many that's selling their LUTs and all this profiles. It does, and trying to be educators, and it's rubbish. Most of it's rubbish. They're just like jumping on because that's just what they can do. I don't want to be a YouTube photographer. That's not. I leave that to. I'll name check like Heaton. Fantastic. James Poppett's fantastic. There's a couple of
what do they do?
Chris Tucker.
What do they do? They explain.
They explain the process and like the really good ones. Jamie Windsor. Really slickly done, well edited, and more about the aesthetics of the photography. They're talking about on a bit of a not just. Super base level. But I think too many people have jumped on to YouTube to just try and teach people to do photography, and they're not even particularly good photographers themselves. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
So it's not new anymore.
No, and I don't feel I'm qualified to go and particularly teach photography to people. I get many things wrong. It's not that, and that's up to them if they want to do that. It's just not for me.
And what your plan with YouTube now with Beyond the Embers?
Yeah.
Is there a similar kind of channel that you can get inspiration from, or is it a new idea?
I think there's some similar stuff, but I think also that it's a bit niched because Richard really is unique. He really does have broad knowledge. He's lived this since he was a kid. When kids were playing football and going out playing in the playground, he was out catching rabbits and, bird, falconing and stuff. I mean, he's saying he also collected when Faviken was open. He was doing the foraging for them, so he knows about everything in the forest. He's got his husky, runs huskies. So I mean, there's the unique element of him. He's also done a big TV show, Escape to the Wild, in the UK. which is run by the same company and people that do grand designs.
What's that about?
About people that move abroad to live off-grid kind of lifestyle. So that went out in the UK maybe 10, 15 years ago.
And he was part of that show, or he
was
made
the
the
main,
show?
Him and his wife were the main focus of that show. So they I think there was 6 or 8 in a season, and he was one of them.
And they showed how
they live, and because they lived off-grid then up in Hussor.
Do you still watch that somewhere?
Yeah, I think it is online on YouTube. I think there's a copy of it up there somewhere. I can have a look. So that element of it, and also being I think there's many bushcraft channels, but I think this is more about, not every guest is going to be talking about bushcraft. I want to talk about, just people's outdoors. What is the outdoors to them? What do they do? How do they work? How do they enjoy their time in the outdoors? With some element of bushcraft, of camping, just people's stories. But the line underneath it is, it's all about being outside and being in nature and learning. And then, So
have you got the first episode planned, or
it's up already?
It's up already.
Yeah. It's just, and we've been in Norway filming, but because YouTube's not making money now, and it won't be for a long time, it's the back of the queue for being edited, unfortunately, at the moment. So I need a bit more structure to make sure that YouTube stuff gets edited. And that's part of my problem, is that I want to make it really good production, but I think I need to find a balance where it's time equals production. So maybe I need to figure out a template for making these things, so we can film in one day, edit in one day, get it out.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
Sounds promising.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing some of these videos.
Yeah, I think it will work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest production or project that you've been a part of that you were the most proud of?
Couple ones where, not me on my own, but I got the job, so put a crew together, and one was to film a concert with an orchestra and dancers for Estra Nord in Östersund, a winter concert, and that was really exciting and a challenge, and to run that whole project. And then also maybe another thing with a pianist called Joel Lissaridis at Musabaka in Stockholm, similar thing. I ran the whole project, put a crew together, filmed that live with a live audience, that one.
Just live broadcasting?
No, it didn't go out live, but we had a live audience, and we did all the visuals in collaboration with Sveriges Radio. But that's the thing in the world, we do these things. They're probably two of the things I'm most happy with as well, but they've never because there were so many moving parts. It was like project leading, and I love music, and they both involve music. So that was really, also learned a lot. I wouldn't say they were perfect productions, and I know, but they were really good. I think we did a good job. But for one reason or another, they're not in the public domain.
So you have them on a hard drive?
I have them, yeah, and the clients have them, but the company we did the Joel Lissaridis concert for example, I don't think they...
And who is this Joel?
He's a famous pianist, really, from Stockholm, I believe. Very good pianist, amazing. He's on Spotify, you can check him out. So we recorded that whole concert, like a live concert with a live audience. And then the film we did for Estra Nord with the orchestra and the dancers, that was a close set over a week, filming dancing and the orchestra together, along with some scenes doing different dances.
What is Estra Nord?
Estra Nord is like a government-funded organization up in Stockholm that works with the cultures and the arts and music and orchestra. So they do really, really good work.
How did they get into contact with you?
I believe it was through maybe Filmpool Jämtland. Because you have...
What is it?
Every region has their own film organization. And here in Jämtland, it's called Filmpool Jämtland. And there's they do really good work. there's a woman there called Eva, and I think it was her that was the reach out on Esther and Noor, I believe, if I think back to it.
It's a big leap from taking a photo at a wedding to filming a full orchestra and stuff. That's pretty cool.
No, it is. And, you know, planning that, putting it together, you know, the crew for that all in, not including the artists, was probably 10 people, 12 people. So it was really cool. And then the Joel Lysiridis concert, again, was maybe a crew of 6 or 7, which is quite small for that kind of thing, really. If we had a bigger budget, could it have been better? Of course, absolutely. We could have done things differently. But, you know, we did what we did, and I was really happy with the results. It's just unfortunate sometimes you make stuff that you're really happy with, but it just can't or doesn't, for whatever reason, get used.
I never heard of these stories. I always think when you pay for something, you actually want to show it to the world at some point.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to hear that some parts are
we have the same a bit at a totally different level, but we've sometimes shot pictures that I'm so proud of for certain brands, and then the brand is so big and they gave us all this equipment for us to use, and they never end up using the pictures. So we will use the pictures for our socials, but they never use them for theirs.
Yeah.
And then I also feel so sad because I'm like, oh, guys, they're so good.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean, another good story about that is North Face employed us to do a film with Evelina Nilsson and Janina Kuzma.
Who are they?
Evelina is a skier based here. Janina is a skier based in New Zealand. And we did a mission up to Sarek to film a couloir. And the brief was we'd worked with North Face before, where the brief was pretty, 300 email kind of conversation. This was go tell their story. You've got basically, as far as we were concerned, we had an open hand, and we, because it was pretty low budget production, we didn't want to just do A to B thing. So we tried to do something a little bit different. And, we all aligned with that within the thing and within the crew and the Evelina and Janina, and we were happy with the film, really happy. But in that process of that time, making a film takes a long time, and in that year, people had left North Face that were in control of the project, and new people came in, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to release the film. It doesn't, it didn't align with them at this point. Okay, and that's disappointing. That's not what you want. And again, we like the film. We think it's a good film, but it doesn't have a home. And then there was another sponsor involved in that film that would have put it out, but because it takes so long, that the product that they've used in the film is now old product. So it doesn't align for them to use the film either.
It's painful.
Yeah. So that film will probably never be seen either.
How does it feel for you?
It's not good.
Creator?
It's not good. As a creator, especially, when you make something that you really believe in, that's not great. And it's also not great because you want to have happy clients too. But in this case, the client wasn't the client that we began the journey on.
Yeah. And
if they'd have told us this is, then of course. And I think there was some shortfall in communication, we could say. So it's disappointing.
How do you deal with disappointment and these hardships and in your daily life? Like, do you have a way to release your stress, or I don't know?
No, I suppose just get out in the nature and go and take landscape photos on my own. Put my skis on, or winter now, put the Nordic skis on and just go out on my own with a camera.
That's your happy place.
Yeah, kind of. I can just be in the nature, do my own thing, and then take in photos for no purpose other than to take the scene. And yet, sometimes that can turn into something, and you sell it or whatever. But that's not the intent when I go out there. The intent at that point, I think this is the thing you have to. My job is also something I enjoy, hobby, but that can also be a dangerous place mentally, because when do you turn off? When is it work? When is it fun? When is it, So, I think that's where I have the line. Like if I'm heading out on my own with a camera, and I'm going to go and take some shots of a landscape or something, then that's kind of, I don't see that as work. I hope that's true, but maybe, because I think we sometimes have to leave stuff behind. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful that you can actually use your passion still as a moment for yourself to enjoy something that you really like to do without actually...
I hope so, but my psychologist at the time was a little bit concerned about that. But she said that maybe that's not the best, but you need to have a clear line, because you have to turn off completely. So, but I do enjoy this, and there's a difference of turning up on set or like working for a TV production, or doing something where you're coming in to a bigger production, or even running our own production, but it's an interview setup, or we're doing this or doing that. That's work. It can be moving parts and dealing with people.
But I think every self-employed person has that struggle. It's a gray zone. It's something you love and something that's work, and when do you leave it behind? And just to give you an example that we struggled with recently, that we do a lot of work on the computer, and I felt like my head was just exploding as it never ends. Every time I hold my phone or I open my computer, there's something work related, but it's also something I love and it's fun.
Yeah.
And then Tim was working in bed in the evening, and I was like, well, maybe we should just stop there. Like the bedroom door is where the end is of where our work day ends. Because if we don't protect some part of our day, then it's just a never-ending story.
It's too easy to constantly work these days.
Yeah, and there is this, like you're not meant to look at a screen.
Also,
especially like the hours leading up to going to bed, really bad. But that's actually when you got kids and other stuff, like that's actually, I work, probably the editing part of what I do is probably at night.
And we are more creative in the evening. We're definitely evening people. So that is also part of it.
So then you can turn off, and then it's there is this, and we start now where, especially with the kids, I mean, there's studies coming out now that's showing, we don't know really, this is uncharted territory with screens going forward a little bit. So like, it's something.
Have you found a rule that you apply for your kids or upbringing that works?
Well, Sophia, she is a teacher, and she studied beyond normal on this subject and stuff. So we have, it's not easy, but we have a time limit every day. But it's hard. It's not easy.
Are you good at sticking to that limit, or?
Sophia is absolutely rigid.
Can I ask what that limit is?
I think it's an hour to an hour and a half, depending a day, and then they can buy some time if they read as well.
That's a fun trick.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work. We have conflict as well over it. I try and be maybe a bit more diplomatic, and Sophia is black and white, because she's the one. Now there's new studies coming out the last month that show for the brain, when it's developing, all this screen time it could be, Pandora's box of shit coming in when they get older. It's really, all the studies are not looking good for kids on screens. So she's really hardcore on it.
But then that hour, isn't that hour then too much for her even?
Yeah, but it's about balances. Yeah. It's like I still, in an ideal world, I mean, technically that's not going to be achievable anymore, is it? I mean, it's just how we manage their expectations and
because you also want to give them about your parents as well, and you want to give them a bit of it, so they're not like, I don't want to take TV away from them, because that's just life, and they need to learn. In the end, they learn how iPads work. They learn things from it.
It's positive too. I mean, there is stuff we need. There's good sides to it as well.
But if there's so many more bad sides, then we might have to rethink that. Because right now, that's what we're saying, or at least what we are saying, is there is a positive side to it. But if the negative is, let's say, 90%, it turns out to be in the end, then is that 10% worth it?
Yeah. Question. I don't know the answer, but maybe.
I saw an expert saying that she takes the screen away. So if they can watch something, but it has to be far away from them. to create like we used to have before, a TV screen, and you would have a family sitting around watching something, and also the parents could walk in and you could see what the kids are seeing and talk about it. Maybe.
What do you mean? You just mean putting the TV at a bigger
instead
distance?
of the iPad in front of your face, where the kids are completely in their own world and just scrolling. That she says that's just off limits in my house. So the only thing they're allowed to watch movies and videos, but it's far away from them on a screen.
Well, that's leaning a little bit into this like Friday evening because it should be that okay, we're going to watch a movie together. And you have it on the TV or the projector, and everyone's watching the movie, and you maybe make some popcorn. It's movie night. But what happens is that one kid is in one bedroom on an iPad or phone, one's in another one on an iPad or phone. I'm in the office, and then so we've been trying to reestablish that Fridays we watch a movie together. Easier said than done. 12-year-old girl, 14-year-old boy. What are we going to watch? That debate can go, and by the time that debate's over, then it's like too late to start a movie.
Yeah.
So we do have some battles, but last Friday we watched Stand By Me, which my son enjoyed. My daughter didn't enjoy it. The scene where they're all puking, if you've seen the film where the pie eating contest, that was enough for her. She's out the room. So, and then the films that she would really want to watch, my 14-year-old boy probably isn't going to watch. So
but they have this luxury of choice. Remember, like, I never had to say I was the youngest of, I have 2 older sisters. I just had to join whatever was on. And then my mom would translate the subtitles if it was an English movie or something to me.
And before it was a DVD, you just went to get one film and you had no choice.
And that's also the problem a bit. They're now so used that they can watch whatever they like.
But don't we have too much, all of us, it's a bit too much choice. That's maybe part of the problem.
100%.
But I heard a good analogy of this. It was a musician, I can't remember who it was, but he said that back in the day, you'd be waiting for a record to come out and you would go to the record shop. And I did this. You would go to the record. It was being released on Friday at 9 o'clock. Maybe I wouldn't be there at 9, but I'd go on Friday to the record store, buy the record, CD probably at that time, or, and then you go home. And then he said, okay, that's all great. And he said, but now with Spotify, you maybe take that away. That whole thing of going to the shop and coming home, putting it on, listening to it. But then he said, but imagine if someone said to you, you have this little thing in your pocket and you can listen to anything you want to. Would you take it? He said, of course I would have. It would have been amazing. So that's kind of where we are. Mm-hmm. It's like, but the choice, sometimes we have too much choice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But can we ever go back from that? No, I guess not.
I don't think so. As long as we keep evolving technologically wise. Yeah. That's not even a word. Technologically. Anyway, yeah. It's feels like a train that is not going to stop anytime soon.
No. Do you have a system for yourself to protect yourself from these things?
No, not really. No, I suppose not. But I go, going out in the nature, running.
But do you leave your phone behind then?
No, I have music on. And sometimes I can go to the gym and spend 20 minutes figuring out what I'm listening to. So you're back there, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not easy. Yeah. Too much choice.
Is there anything else you do hobby-wise, like outside of work, that you have time for still in your busy life, it feels?
Not really. Oh, shit.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, because I suppose, snowboarding, ski, but that all also is connected to, in some way, to photography normally, or, so there is other things, camping, going hikes and, like doing all these other things. But normally they are in some way, shape or form connected to a camera, which I'm cool with. I love that. Don't get me wrong.
Has snowboarding or skiing been one of your main reasons to live here, or not really?
Not really. When I first moved here, that's what that of course was I can go snowboarding all the time, and the first, it was great. But now I realised that I don't think anything can beat. You go out -7, -10 minus 15, maybe powder snow, and I've got a skier or a snowboarder and we're going to shoot photos. That's amazing. It's brilliant. But on those days, you're also like, oh, I'd like to ride that too. If I'm being honest, ride it or shoot it, I'd rather shoot it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I want to get the photo.
Nice.
Yeah. I'd like to ride it after, but that's not always doable either. But I think for me, it's definitely, I enjoy it, but it's more, I'm not good enough to really, really get off on it, I think, is the thing.
But do you have to?
But then I'm like, I've spent too much time maybe going out photographing than trying to develop my skills, probably. And I can go around, I can get everywhere, I can do everything, and it's no problem. But sometimes when you see a snowboarder and I work with a couple of people, and they just do a turn, and it's like, oh my God, he only did a turn, but it was like there's something about that turn that was
art to it,
just another level, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, then photographing that is the next best thing, and maybe even better for me. But yeah, there's a couple of snowboarders, especially snowboarders I've worked with, where it's just been.
Who are the ones that stick out? Are they locals here?
Yeah, it was a guy. He's in Kleppen, but he comes up a lot. Felix Axelsson. He's like he's a coach at Kleppen. He's never been a pro boarder, but he's a fantastic boarder. And then back in the day when I first moved up here, there was a couple of guys at the time that were amazing. They've left now. They've gone. They moved away a long time ago. But working with Felix has been really fun.
And you're still here. What has kept you here?
I think it's a good place to bring up a family. I would say my son loves skiing. He's, but if we had to move, I don't know. I don't think it would. It couldn't happen. He just loves skiing. I mean, he lives for it. Literally, he goes to the gym at 5:30 in the morning to get ready for the season. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's still motivated. He wants to do well. So that's really.
You could move to another ski resort.
That's true. He'd like to. He wants to. Whenever we're having debates about going on holiday, it's always Japan. He just wants to go to Japan or Canada.
Would you ever see yourself living somewhere like that?
No, I could see myself going to Norway. I like Norway, somewhere there. But no, and I think as I get older, I think I'm getting more drawn towards the sun. It's been like 20, 30 odd years of cold. Most of the work I do has been in the cold. And it's fun and it's great. But I think there's something in us as we get older. Maybe that's why you get all these wrinkly old British people, my mother included, that moved to Spain. I think as we get older, we want the sun a little bit more.
I think it's also the bones, though.
Yeah, I think there's something in it. I do. I start to believe that.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of people here that go to Spain now quite a lot when they hit the 50s and stuff. So it's just more comfortable. Bones.
The cold does keep you young, though, because our neighbors are quite old. They're lovely people, but they have to shovel their driveway and keep all those things going. So I think it's good for your health, physically and mentally.
Probably, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So don't move away too fast.
No. I loved. I mean, I suppose one of the reasons why we moved up here is because I want winter to kind of be winter. If we're gonna live in this place and it's dark, we want to have snow and we want to have fun. I mean, the winters in Stockholm, I remember when I was there in my 20s, it could be super cold, like a lot of the time, and have some snow. But I think in more recent years, it's not the norm that they have cold temps and snow. There's been some exceptions, but so like moving up here, and I think for.
But you've been here for more than 10 years now, if
11.
I'm correct. Have you seen it change a lot?
No, I think it had already been changing. My girlfriend's dad, he keeps a diary of the tree line. And so that's documented there that it's been changing.
What do you mean, a diary of the tree line?
Like where it snows coming down to rain.
Yeah, so you're talking about the snow. I more meant just life here in general.
Oh, has it changed?
The vibe.
Yeah, I think a little bit, definitely. I mean, I think since we made the move, I think many people have moved. I think that was a trend before COVID, but I think it's grown more. There's more buildings being built. There's more things like.
Do you like it?
I think progression is always good, but I think that there's some little bit short-sightedness in some of the stuff that goes on.
Do you have an example, or?
Oh, I just think that, I mean, let's look at Ulladalan as a beginning, what they've done up there. I think that there's people that come in to make money, and I don't think that's necessarily good for the village as a whole. I think there's some very grey zones with what's going on with the politics there. Yeah. I think so.
And we can go deeper into that. Maybe that's not the
subject.
But you did say about the tree line. Have you ever had like a winter here that was cold all winter, powder, like what we have experienced in the Alps?
No, spells of it. But when you look at the old photos, the stuff from like the 40s and before, and you see them digging out Bergbanan, and so you can look at the old stuff and really see some deep snow. But no, there's been spells where it's been good, but I think Åre has always suffered from this being in the valley with the warmer air coming in from the North Sea on those so many times where we're 1 or 2 degrees off snow, but it comes as rain. That's the downside of the winter. That's horrible. Yeah.
Have you had like moments where everything just aligned and you had the beautiful off-piste with a perfect skier or snowboarder? You film mostly, or you ski?
Sometimes.
Take pictures.
Not enough, maybe, but you got to put yourself in a position to do that. And that's why I think to do ski photography properly and stuff, for me, it's more fun, that stuff. You need to be able to travel to the weather. Like, I think if you're just doing it here, you need so many things to align for it to work. And
that's what I meant. Around here, it's probably hard.
No, it's tricky. I mean, you have to, I think that kind of photography, you can't really have a family. You just need to be ready to go and go wherever and do whatever. But to take some of those photos for fun and do that stuff, like the films we made, with Evelina, say, up in Kebnekaise and stuff, that we had a window to go, but it was too much snow. It was too dangerous. So we had to put it off. So then when we went, it was too late, really. It was, the snow had gone bad, and it was too warm, and it wasn't the best. So, and the budget allowed for, 8 days?
Yeah.
What can you do? It is what it is. Unless you have a budget for a film and they send you somewhere for, you got a window of 2 months. So you can spend the whole winter.
Sounds like heaven.
Yeah. But those kind of, no one's spending that money really, apart from the top few productions. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So that kind of stuff is a lot of fun. And now I'm having fun doing it with my son because he's skiing good. So I've got a little project with him because he's a teenager. He don't really want to hang with his dad so much. So in the daytime, he's out skiing with his friends. So we had this thing where we go at night. So we put headlamps on and we head up different places, ski touring at night.
Nice.
So we're going to make a film about that, a little video. That's a passion project. So yeah, just little stuff like that. It's fun to.
We still need to go out at night. We have been here for a while, and it's one of our things that we haven't really done yet.
Yeah. We can go.
Do you have any advice on where to go? What's the?
It really depends how much time you want to put in, but I mean, when the snow came a couple of weeks ago, we had the one dump. We went up to Skogis, just hiked up from the village. Like simple, quick, easy. So that's cool. You can take a fjell locally. Then, up to Storulvån if you want to do something a bit further. And then you've got the whole Ufferdal going up there if you want to put an overnight in, a day more. The stuff up there is really nice. Milkvatnet stuff up there, super nice.
Also haven't been there.
Yeah. And a super easy, nice one just for an evening. Just drive up to Trillevallen and do the hike up Trillevallen, come across the ridge. You get if it's a clear night, maybe Northern Lights, clear view of Åre in the distance, also looking over towards Norway. And then if it's good snow, you have a really nice snowboard down the off-piste area back onto the cross-country track.
Yeah.
So you can do this nice loop, super easy. And then there's some places up there that some people have told me about that are really cool. And I've gone up there at night, but it's night, so we just haven't been able to find exactly where they meant.
Yeah, that's
it's amazing. So I'm on the phone trying to figure it out, and I don't think, so you have to.
Nice.
It's a bit tricky sometimes, but yeah.
Is there anything important we haven't touched on yet?
I think it's cool. Yeah. If it's okay with you guys.
No, it's all good. The only thing I was wondering that you briefly mentioned something about that seal of approval from the Swedish government, which I still find interesting to hear more about. I don't know if you can explain it or not. Or
I'll tell you that I will, because maybe we don't, because you have to research it. I can't remember the details,
so
but we could talk about it for sure. But
I find it interesting.
Yeah.
Is there any advice? Maybe I had one more thing. Would you, in your mind, would it be possible for somebody else, a younger person, to move up here and kind of follow your journey as a starting photographer and say, like, I'm going to move there, find my way and get jobs and live out of photography? Or is it too late now in the time?
No, I don't think it's too late. I think it's possible. But when I say that, I also put myself in that position, and I'll be like, without any contacts or, background, I'd be a bit nervous, but it's doable. Absolutely. And I think also that, the whole sphere of production and content is changing, and for the younger people coming in, they're maybe even more in touch with what's going to happen than I am. So, I think, of course, I think you just got to get out there, talk to people, hustle, do stuff. I think it's all doable. And I just think it's probably a different journey to what it was. Now it's changing so much, that whole content arena. So it's just different.
But would you do anything different? Looking back at coming here and starting your whole journey as a photographer?
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't have had as much gear acquisition syndrome in the beginning, buying stuff you don't need. 100%. I could have had a few nice holidays instead.
So keep it simple and minimal.
Yeah. Now the cameras I'm using now, for example, I have no plan to update them, and I've had them for at least a couple of years. But before, you'd be, it was just looking back, not the best business decisions. So that would be the first thing. And then I probably would have done the agency earlier and started YouTube earlier, 100%. I was talking to this YouTuber the other day. He's been on his journey for 9 years. And like, the money he's making is insane. Insane. He was a lawyer, and he quit being a lawyer to be a YouTuber.
And what is a YouTube about?
Outdoor stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I just think that's a sign that, like, I think that there is this thing where people online, and if you look too much into the finances of all this stuff, more people don't succeed than succeed, right? So a lot of the stuff that you're reading is people, oh, the YouTube money's shit, it's no good, blah, blah, blah. When you actually dig down, if you can make it work, there is money in YouTube, 100%.
But then you do it for the money.
Yeah, but it's a job.
It is a hard thing. Yeah, but it's a
job that's also, like, involving even if company X employed me now for X amount of money, it's still a job. I'm still doing it for the money, but it might be making a ski movie or something. I would probably, I don't know if I want to say this, but I'd probably do it for free anyway. So with YouTube for me is a business. It's not. It's about making money, 100%. It's just another job. One of the things, when the economy's been bad and the money's not being spent, at least as it was up here, I think, then you do start to think, I met a photographer up here the other day, and he told me he's just taking a job in a hotel. And I think if you do that there comes a case for that, 100%. If you don't, the grind of constantly having to find work, it's a grind. So if you can have a regular income, then that's a great thing. But I just think that the moment you take that other job, you maybe limit then the other side. That's my fear. That's why I think starting a YouTube, I'm looking at that as another potential stream. And the agency, for example, instead of looking at I'm a bit tired of just getting one-off jobs. I want to get clients that are on for a contract for like 3 months to begin with, maybe a year, 6 months. But so it becomes regular income. rather than just one-off assignments. The one-off assignments don't work anymore. It kind of, the business model, I think, has to be more, you're almost becoming a marketing department. And if that's just me with a company, like doing their social media, like the content for their social media, or if it's the agency doing the content, the SEO, getting the viewers in that through this agency and bringing people together that have that skill set, then that's a good thing. And then so then there's more. You can forecast more what you're going to earn. This year we have this, rather than job by job by job. Job by job, it's been like that pretty much you have repeat clients, and you have clients that come back. But you also have, I won't mention any names, but you also have clients that you're doing work for that's substantial money for me, that there's been a misunderstanding because someone left, someone else came in. They've got their dates wrong when the stuff was due. I get a phone call. Where's this photos? Well, they're not due for another year. This is for next season's winter campaign. Oh, okay, I'm really sorry. I'll call you. I never hear from them again. I didn't do anything wrong. Nothing. But that's the life of a freelancer. There's a book that a woman in England made about being a freelancer, how you shouldn't go to the Christmas party because one mistake could cost you your livelihood. And like she was just that kind of listening analogy of it for me. Of course, you should go to the Christmas party. You're networking, but you've got to be aware as a freelancer that a contact can leave, someone can go.
But you just said that it's maybe not a good thing to take on a side job that has a income that is steady, like just working for something. Because it takes you out of your field of passion or what you're doing, so you can't do that 100%. But in some ways, I think it's also nice to have that side hustle that maybe is something completely different and takes your brain off what you're doing and brings in a steady income that you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, but I don't get the question though.
Sorry?
I don't get the question though.
Now just thinking about what you said, like if that is necessarily a bad thing to do that on the side. Well, if you come here as a photographer and you want to set up your life, like you said, the person that had to go to the hotel.
No, that's a good thing. But it can be a bad thing, I think, because then say what happens is you've taken that job, a regular job, and then the client rings and says, got a campaign. I can't go because I've got to work. That's what I meant.
Yeah, so you have to kind of stay flexible. So even if you know you're going to do that on Thursday and Friday, you think you need the whole week. That's
my fear. That's my only thing. It's like, what does it mean for the other business, the freelance business? That I agree. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think but what I'm kind of getting at, rather than taking that job, I think the answer is to have 2, 3, 4 clients that are on monthly or longer contracts. So you can build a relationship with them. You really start to understand what they are after. I think that's important.
So to sum it up, as a younger self, you would say to yourself, you come here, you find a kind of a crew or like a bunch of people you can work with together. You start an agency and then find these clients that you can work for.
I don't know if that's
time.
The way for the person coming in as a younger person. Maybe, probably not, because they're not going to have those relationships yet. But I think that the younger person coming in has a different skill set to me now these days, just because social media and content creation is changing, and the fear for people of my age is that we have to keep our finger on that button, and understand what's going on, like there's platforms, so I think that I don't think that's maybe an option for someone coming up immediately, because they need to build those relationships first. Otherwise, there's no foundation, I think.
Yeah, sure.
But I think,
I mean, as soon as possible, instead of waiting for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, maybe once they get to a point, they look, because I just think you have more behind you if you are a brand or a company, than if you are just Valerie or Tim. It's a different thing. I think so.
I think that's a really good takeaway
for sure.
from this.
Yeah.
Anything we want to touch on more, or are we happy?
I'm super happy. Do you need an intern?
Oh, sometimes we do.
Yeah, if somebody's listening and they, want to learn and they can edit for you.
We've had a Hampus came to me many years ago, wanted to be a photographer. Now he's working at the school. He's like a good kid, and we've had a few come through. The problem is that sometimes when they come from like campus, like the outdoor school or somewhere, the problem is that they have a set period, and I could be quiet in that period. So it's hard to say.
Well, then they can just bring you coffee.
Yeah, but I'm working from home these days, so I'm letting the office go. It's decided to, because my office where I've been based out of, they're getting rid of it. So rather than take a new office, I decided to work from home. So I got the dog, and it makes sense. So an intern gets a bit
in your face,
bit trickier, And plus, when I have had interns, like there's been some most of them have been fantastic, and if they get lucky, then we're going to Norway for a week, and then great. But normally I have to kind of say, I just can't give you a guarantee on that week. It could be nothing going on. And then I did have it once where we were in the office, and I'm getting them to just Google shit. There wasn't much to do, it is a bit that way. And then people have asked to come on film shoots to see what's going on, and I know one woman was a bit disappointed because it was just a quick job solo, and she was expecting everything to be more like a film set, And I'm like, no, they're paying this much money. We've got to be quick. We've got to do this, and this, and do it well. But this is not Hollywood one. And I think sometimes that I would love everything to be, if you make a documentary for 10,000 kroner or 10 million kroner, the story and everything probably is the same. It's just we can do more. We can do better graphics, better maps. We can do it better. But the heart of it should be the same.
Where is the money these days in brands or companies that have money to spend on film projects? Or
I don't really know. I don't think I don't really know the answer to that, because I don't think. When we've worked for the brands, for North Face, for example, I know that we've been probably the lowest cost production in those particular years, and that's just how it is. I mean, they're making stuff all over the world, and they're big names, and so we are literally the smallest production and stuff. And I mean, we're saying small production, but it's still, for us individually, still a well-paid job. I mean, we can do some good stuff, but there comes a point where I would love, say, for example, the client in the budget, they've budgeted for X amount of days to do X amount of things, and we need to shoot 20 shots then in a day. That's what we need. But I would like to be shooting 3 shots in a day, and instead of doing a handheld shot on a slider, I would rather put the slider up, so we get a smooth shot, do it properly, do it really cool. And I think that's a challenge for creators, because you want to start doing that kind of stuff so you attract higher end clients and productions and more money. But the more that you are sort of doing the lower end, you are shooting to get the shots through on the day. You're doing you're not rigging up a big camera set, or to set up a room like this, for example, takes a bit of time. You've got to do the cameras, the lights, the background, everything. And what do people want to pay for an interview? Normally it's an hour. If I come into somewhere, you need at least an hour to set the cameras up, if not more. And then you have to shoot. So it's at minimum half a day. But ideally you want a full day. So then you could put a camera here with a slider on it to get another angle, or, whatever. And that's part of the challenge, I think, for people. You need to try and push the money up, so you make that stuff that looks more like it should look. That's the challenge. Because this stuff it's getting cheaper. The gear is getting cheaper. It's getting more accessible. You can now get really good stuff for half the cost it cost 10 years ago. Powerful lights, etc.
Where can people follow you and find out what your next projects are?
Instagram, Darren Hamlin Photography, and the website darrenhamlin.com.se.
We'll put that in the description below.
Yeah.
To wrap it up, are you ready for rapid fire fun?
Rapid fire fun?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
I think you're ready. Ski or snowboard?
Snowboard.
Evening person?
I'll rephrase that. Snowboard, but to photograph, probably ski.
Okay, good one. Evening person or morning person?
Evening, but I'd like to be more of a morning person.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Sauna or hot tub?
Oh, hot tub.
And hiking or biking?
Hiking, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all for today.
Thank you
so
for having
much.
me. Thank you for having me.